All right, welcome back to another edition of Artist Retrospective. This is the video series that I'm trying out to kind of spotlight and highlight particular artists, kind of go through their histories, give some high points, some of their best-selling books, my favorites of theirs, and just general information on covers and artists, cover artists in general, just kind of one by one, just kind of spotlighting, guys that I think that are underappreciated, or maybe they're not underappreciated, but my favorite artists. So this is something that I enjoy doing. So hopefully you guys enjoy watching these videos as well. This is only my second attempt at it, so we'll see how we go going forward. Please make suggestions and let me know if you like what's going on. Please like, subscribe, hit the alert button so you don't miss anything, and just hang on for a second after the intro, and I'll be right back with my next artist. Okay, so last week I started off this artist retrospective series spotlighting Dave Stevens, and he is definitely one of my favorites, and definitely an influence to a lot of other artists out there doing covers and doing great works. Another influential type of artist comes from the field of animation, and I felt like, you know what? I'm going to hit him up next for my second attempt at doing this, and the artist I'm referring to is Bruce Timm. Now, I know you guys all probably know him from Batman the Animated Series and all those other DC animated properties, but he's done a lot of other works outside of that I think you should, be aware of. And maybe you are, maybe you aren't. If not, just take a few moments. Let's go through this thing together. Now, Bruce Timm, where did he get started? As you know, as I mentioned, he's an animator. He got his start in animation. And even the first comics that he did way back were related to animation, and those were those mini comics that have come up a couple of times in some of the things I've done. I know Marco and I talked about him a little bit when he did our He-Man show, and I also did a Masters of the Universe thing talking about mini comics and something for Dollar Bin Digging once. So he actually worked, as an artist on these mini comics. If you look real closely, you can see his little signature there down at the bottom of those little Masters of the Universe mini comics. He did a few, like starting with 25 and 49. They're numbered, but they're just included with characters. It's not really a series per se, but he did a good handful of those mini comics to start off his comic artwork, really. But again, where he really got his start, though, was in animation. And most of it can be kind of tied back to Filmation, I believe, is the animated studio that had a ton of cartoons, a bunch of which I'm sure you recognize looking at this image here, and he worked on a bunch of them. I believe he started off doing layouts and character designs for things like Black Star and Flash Gordon, the greatest adventure of all the animated series. And you got He-Man and She-Ra, obviously. There was another little bit in there, I think, after he started with Black Star, where he kind of he worked under Don Bluth to do an animated feature, working, doing animation for The Secret of NIMH. I don't know if any of you guys remember that. I'm old enough to remember that cartoon with, Nicodemus and all those cool characters. And, Don Bluth, as you guys all know from, Space Ace and Dragon's Lair, fame, I guess. But Bruce Timm worked on a bunch of animated properties back in the day, doing layouts, character design, working on animation, and being, I think the term they use is model designer. I think it's like a lot of character design and things, where he worked on G.I. Joe, The Real Ghostbusters, and Tiny Toon Adventures. Just a ton of animation in the 80s there that he got to work on. And then while he was doing that, he did dabble a bit into some comics as well there in the late 80s, where he was mostly doing like colors and finishes, which I think is mostly like an inker, but maybe a little bit more entailed depending on kind of layouts you get there. So you can see some of these independent companies that he worked for, it weren't big titles. So, not a lot of interest in those books. But I mean, if you look there, he got to basically ink and color, I guess, Rob Liefeld there on that X-Mutants. I mean, that's kind of a weird connection to have way back then, but yeah, definitely kind of cool. But Eternity Comics and a lot of these, Malibu, those smaller independent publishers is where he kind of got his start. But as I mentioned, he's probably best known for right there in the early 90s working on Batman the Animated Series, right? I mean, this is where you can know his name. This is why you know Bruce Timm. It's from Batman, And that being said, that was one of the best animated cartoons probably of all time. Like, it's just so well done. The stories, the animation, just the whole vibe, and the characters that came out of it. I mean, look, Harley Quinn is still a character decades later that was just this little side character introduced on the cartoon that is now, I don't know, I don't want to say, she's an IP, a figurehead of DC, all of her own, right there with Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman. She's kind of just right there on their Mount Rushmore these days, one would argue. I mean, she's kind of carrying their movie universe as best that she can, but it's just amazing that, so he got to work, in creating her, Paul Dini. And this Batman the Animated Series was just so influential, and it just spun off so many other great animated series as well, from him working on Superman the Animated Series. Batman Beyond came out of this, and then the Justice League, and then the Justice League Unlimited series as well. All great animated cartoons. You can go back and still watch any of these even today. My son got into the Justice League ones for a while there when he was little, because it's just timeless. It's just timeless entertainment that still holds up even today. And just carrying through on that animation kind of kick. He's gotten promoted into higher levels and got to work on things as time's gone on with Batman Gotham Knight, which is definitely a different visual style than what you might expect out of Bruce Timm. But then you also get the 3D rendering of a Bruce Timm kind of vibe with that Green Lantern, the animated series. So those are the kind of things you got later in his animation life, as, the methods of how animation is done have kind of changed, as the years gone on. It's no longer, cell drawn animation. Everything's basically digitized and done on computers. But again, he's moved up in the ranks, executive producer on a ton of the DC animated movies, which are fantastic. Justice League, Gods and Monsters, Batman the Killing Joke. I mean, minor tweaks aside to what they did to some of the stories, it's still really cool to see some of these famous, comic book runs just really faithfully adapted, for the most part, into animation, and done very well. So can't fault them for what they're doing there at DC Animation. They are by far a better product, I would say, at this point than the movies themselves. But it's a personal feeling. I just feel like the animation's been done better than the movies. It's just the movies just haven't hit the mark that I'm looking for my personal feeling. Now, that being said, he's had a hell of a run, Bruce Timm. So let's look at the top 5 books that actually sell for him right now. And you may be surprised some of the ones that you'll see on this list and how well these actually sell for. And you go, really? You can't think. You're like, well, do I really know a lot of Bruce Timm comic books? Are they all just Batman the Animated Series? And they aren't. They definitely aren't. So let's get into it, and let's look at the top 5 covers that you could find for Bruce Timm. Starting off with number 5, yes, it is tied to Batman the Animated Series, but this Batgirl Adventures one is fantastic. I don't even think I have a copy of this anymore. I think I sold the only 2 copies that I've had over time, just not thinking, taking that short money, and I really wish I had one of these back. This is just a fantastic cover that has even been homaged on other things by both himself and I think other artists. It's just a great cover, and definitely one that I wish I had back. Hopefully I still have one. Maybe I'd still have one somewhere buried in one of these boxes. That's my hope. But if not, I'm definitely keeping an eye out for one, because the price on this thing has jumped. I mean, this used to be just like a $30 book thereabouts, but now it's about $70. So $70, and this is coming in at number 5, basically. I'm counting down to 1. So that's where we're starting. We're starting at 70. So these are not going to be cheap books for you to go out and pick up. These are the top 5 best-selling right now as I did my check. So definitely be aware of them, because if you find one of these for super cheap, you might have done well for yourself in both getting something for cheap for your PC, or if you want to sell it, you do what you have to do. It's your comic after all. Next up, one you might not think of for Bruce Timm, Gen 13 Bootleg. A little bit of a more risque kind of cover, but there's nothing that is not suitable for work that you can see, but a little bit more, I guess, like I said, risque for the cover here for Gen 13 Bootleg. And I think this is actually a B cover, so there is a regular cover, and then there was this. I don't believe it's an incentive. I think it was just a variant, 1-for-1 type or open order, but definitely not an easy one to find. And so keep an eye out for it. I've been looking for this one for a while, and every time I find a Gen 13 Bootleg run, I dig and look for 18, and it's never there. Never there. So that being said, what does this book sell for? This one is about $90. I found a sale for recently. This was, end of July, so a little over a month ago, but still, this is a book that sells every once in a while. And when it does, it's selling for like $90, $100. It's definitely not cheap, because it's not easy to track down, but definitely one to keep an eye out for. As we move on, I know I said it's not going to be all Batman, but you know it's going to be Batman heavy. So Mad Love is probably one of his best known works. I think that he won, I don't know if they won an Eisner for it. They might have, but they definitely won some awards for this one. I should have double checked it before filming this, but I know they definitely won awards for this one. This was like 94, I think. And this was just a great story, just great issue. Just there's a prestige cover for this as well. There's like a regular cover, and then there's prestige format as well. But this Batman Adventures Mad Love is just fantastic, and one that is not easy to find either for a cheap price anymore. So if you're lucky enough to have one, hang on to it. If not, try to find one cheap, because this thing, again, it was at auction, only one bid, but still, that was 120 bucks. $119 for this, plus 12 bucks shipping. Definitely not a cheap book at all, but definitely a good one. Now, as we move through this list, you might be surprised that, again, some of these covers might be a little, like I said, a little bit risque, a little racy, a little spicy. And that's kind of where we're coming in with our number 2 book, and that's Spicy Tales, number 11 from Eternity. Yeah, just not something you really would expect. Most people, I guess, would expect out of Bruce Timm, but he does a fantastic job. This kind of noir kind of vibe. I mean, it's the simplicity in the art, but at the same time, it just harkens back to those old pulp kind of like books to me, and I kind of dig it. So I do like his style, even in this more, I guess, in adult or natured or themed like books. Again, this is not for kids. It's just fantastic cover art here, and just good stuff. And this is not a cheap book either. I mean, it's coming in at number 2, so you know it's over 120 bucks. So this Spicy Tales 11, what does this thing sell for? 150 bucks. One bid this sold for at auction. It's not an easy to find book. I know the image there is blurry. That's how they sold it. They were able to sell this book on eBay with that blurry picture. Crazy, right? So what does that take us down to for our number 1? Well, you may not be too surprised, but Batman Beyond number 1 has just skyrocketed these last like year or two in value. So one shouldn't be too surprised that his work here has garnered this as being his top selling book. Again, I'm only doing raw books. I wasn't looking up graded, because graded, I got to find, apples to apples, got to find 9.8s, and not everything's going to have a 9.8 or a recent sale. So I felt like raw was the best way to go in doing this. And again, it's just for fun and for informational purposes. It's just really for my own interest, and hopefully you guys find this interesting. But for this number 1, this book, this Batman Beyond Raw, you can still see it's still selling pretty well. 321 bucks at auction with 13 bids on it. Definitely not cheap. Definitely not a cheap book. And that's why, it ended up being his number 1 best-selling book and best-selling cover. And it's a character I know a lot of people are looking forward to seeing, hopefully in some form again sometime soon, whether it be live action or even animated again. I know a lot would be into that. But what else do we got? I got some more favorites that I kind of want to go over. Just more covers that didn't quite make the cut for the top 5, but some of which sell pretty well, and other ones I just dig. I just think they're cool covers, and just want to share them, share my love of this artist, Bruce Timm, with you guys, and hopefully you like it too. Let me know too what covers you don't see that you like in the comments, because I'd love to hear more, and we can have a conversation. Maybe you got ones that I have never seen before, or I'll explain to you why I didn't pick those ones. I don't know. Let's just have some fun. So let me know in the comments what you think of what your favorite Bruce Timm covers are, even if they are the same as mine. Let me know. I'd be curious. I'd definitely be curious to hear from you guys on that. So for more of my favorites, let's just kind of run through a few of these. You can pick a lot of these like Gotham Adventures type covers, but a Harley cover is always going to be pretty good. And you got that shadowy like Joker kind of chasing her. I'm assuming it's the Joker chasing her, but it's just a shadowy figure. But with as you know, the story of Harley, I mean, a lot of that is like kind of Joker kind of chasing her down and just dominating her for quite a while there. So that's kind of the vibe I get from this cover. And I think even for a kid's book and a kid's cover, I think it's really, really cool. And I like the vibe that it's elicits out of there. And then you can go to the standard animation covers, because when they adapted all these cartoons, they basically let him do the first covers on Superman Adventures, obviously, with being involved in the cartoon, and they're going to adapt it to a comic. They let him do the covers for some of these, like the Justice League Adventures as well. Really cool covers. I mean, this is that painted kind of style over top of its pencils. Definitely fantastic look there. And just really cool. Again, that Justice League Adventures and Justice League Unlimited was a great run of cartoons, animation, or whatever you want to call it. I call them cartoons, so that's what I'm sticking with. And then I don't know if you remember the Mask of the Phantasm movie, that straight up movie from Batman, the animated series. I thought that was great as well. It was a fun idea to say, wait, this is the cartoon at home. They're making a movie. I definitely got to go see this. So they also adapted that and let him do the cover on that book as well. And then there's plenty of others, like I said, some great Harley and Joker covers throughout the run. So this Batman Adventures 3 actually sells pretty well. So if you can find this one or any Harley cover on these adventures, animated books of any kind, are ones you're going to want to go and grab if you can find them. So I don't know, you can see why. It's just cool stuff. Definitely cool stuff. He also did a 3-issue run with Harley and Ivy that also has this kind of cool, painted kind of vibe over his pencils. A little more exaggerated, the cover art here, than the normal animated style that he's done, but definitely still a cool look. And like I said, it's a 3-issue run. I keep an eye out for those. Those also sell pretty well, in like the $20 to $30 range each. So if you can find these things for cheap, it's just something to kind of keep an eye out for, or even just for yourself, because it's a fun little run for 3 issues. He got to work on the occasional random, regular DC book, like, Adventures of Superman. So we got a cool Superman cover. I mean, classic pose. I mean, I know that you can think of the Alex Ross painted version of this, but you got to also appreciate the Bruce Timm, more animated look as well. Just the iconic pose, iconic cover. It's just one of those ones that, if you see it in a box, you just, especially if it's cheap, you're just go and grab it, because it just catches your eye. Just, you can't leave it behind. You can't leave it. Just go ahead and grab it. And as DC went on, they actually let him do a few variants as well. DC's done a lot of theme month variants throughout their runs, and I think this was the Flash month for the on this Harley Quinn number 14. So he got to do a cover here just randomly, and these things do all right if you can find them. So keep an eye out for them, because they're not. I don't believe these were incentives. I think these were just kind of like the B covers when they did these. Some of the months were incentives, but I don't think the Flash 75 was an incentive. I think it was just kind of a B cover situation. And then he also got to do Harley's Little Black Book. And I don't know if you remember when they had the black bag versions, where they actually sold you a black bag version of a comic, and it had one of 3 covers in there. You either had the full color version right here, that's number 23 of Harley's Little Black Book with Harley Quinn. Definitely pretty cool. You got the 2 Harleys together. But then when you opened up your black bag, you might have gotten the inked version. So you didn't get the color, you got the inked version. Or perhaps you just got the pencils, and that was the option of what you might have gotten. It was black bag. It was a fun idea. I wonder if they're going to bring that back ever again, but I thought it was kind of cool, and it got people to chase. It was almost like tapping into that card market where you don't know exactly what's inside. So definitely pretty cool there. He got to do an 80th anniversary. So Detective 1000, this I think was the 1940s cover. So we got to do a pretty cool homage here with this Joker cover. Definitely cool. He fit that era, that noir kind of a style I dig. And I think he fit perfectly for doing the 40s, because when Detective 1000 hit, they did a decade thing, an artist got to do a 30s, 40s, 50s, yada, yada down the line. And Bruce Timm got to do the 40s here with this detective homage. Definitely a cool book. And also kind of cool. I don't usually do store or convention exclusives on things like this, but he did do a really cool convention exclusive for a reprint of Batman Adventures 12, which was the first appearance of Harley. And I think that was out of, Expo. I think it was a Fan Expo. I don't know if it was Canada or which one it was, but I think it was a Fan Expo variant. But they had three covers for this. So, it's the classic, Batman Adventures 12, first Harley Quinn cover, but you can see it's kind of updated, and it's in Bruce Timm style, and more of that kind of painted, kind of cartoony kind of thing going there. But they had the regular cover with a regular trade dress, as well as a black and white version that you get, and there was a virgin version as well. And again, it's pretty cool. I mean, it reprinted Harley's first appearance. Was something they did, I think, a few years. There was a John Boy, I think they did one like that. It was a similar thing where they had 3 covers. I think it was an acetate thing involved. Maybe it was just 2 covers, but they did reprinting the Harley's first appearance a couple of times. So just something to be aware of when you're out there shopping, But those are just some cool covers that I thought we should talk about. But a lot of people, that was very DC heavy, but a lot of people forget he actually has some Marvel work as well. So just to kind of spotlight a few things, he did this 12-issue run on Fantastic Four, the world's greatest comic magazine. Definitely pretty cool. It kind of fits, again, for his style. It was a good match. But he's also done some variants as well, whether it be incentive variants where he did an homage to, Iron Man 1, or the Invincible Iron Man 1 here. But it's done in the Bruce Timm style, and it's painted. Pretty cool homage there. And then he's just done other variants along the way with a Spider-Gwen book here, where I think he did one of the covers, as well as Spider-Woman. Cool stuff. Definitely cool stuff. And I know this Amazing Spider-Man one was kind of tough to find for issue 49 when it came out, but kind of cool MJ cover with her dancing. It's definitely cool. And my favorite, probably Marvel book that he's done is this Cage incentive. This thing's just really cool. This issue 2 is just fantastic. You get that whole movie poster kind of vibe going there. Just blaxploitation films. Definitely really cool, and one that I'm looking out for. It is not cheap, so it's not super duper expensive, but it's definitely not cheap. But it's definitely one to keep an eye out for. You can find it out there. And just as we start to wrap these things up, we're going to move on to the independent books that he did as well, because again, he did independent stuff, like even back from the 80s, even through a good chunk of the run of his career, where again, some of these might be a little more risque. So as we move a little bit more forward, some of the stuff might get toe the line towards being a little bit not suitable for work. But if you're still with me, it's worth it. Out of This World. Definitely a cool cover. You got the whole classic. It's kind of the bondage alien vibe going after her. It's definitely a fantastic cover. I think this was late 80s. This might have been like 89. This is also a tough one to find and pretty pricey if you could find one in those back issue bins. I could only find my issue 3 of All Crime, which is what I have sitting next to me here. But he did 3 issues of this title, All Crime, and it is a great book. Again, they even give it that distressed, pulp book kind of magazine kind of vibe. It's definitely really cool. Not super duper expensive, but not cheap. I mean, these things can go anywhere like that $30, kind of range, maybe 40, maybe a little less. But he did issue 1, like I said, 3 issues. Issue 2, as well as this one I got next to me, issue 3. All really cool, and definitely things I think people should keep an eye out for. And of course, he's got tied to things with doing covers for like The Spirit, which makes a lot of sense, that Eisner run, because again, that time frame, it just fits his art style very, perfectly. But at the same time, it is kind of fun to also see him do the more the racier type cover. So him doing a Vampirella, and I think this was the one in 75 actually as well. This incentive for Vampirella number 9, I want to say this is issue 9, is definitely something that's kind of fun. So if you can find it, add it to the collection, because again, I'm a fan. I like this. I like this style. And one other thing I think to make you guys aware of are the art books that he has out there. He's done a run of art books with Good Girl art that sell very well, and he's done a few over the years, and just something for you to keep an eye out for. And if you're interested, something you can go and hunt down on your own, because I've been looking. I want to buy them, but it's like even at when they come out, I think they come out at a price that's like $40, which is not, it's super expensive, but it's just still something that you just want to work into and be understanding the budget that you're working with, because in the aftermarket these things go up pretty quickly, so it's kind of like limited in nature when they come out. So you just kind of act fast if you can. I know there's hardcover versions as well as some paperback versions. Buy what you can if you're interested as well. And some of this stuff's going to be, again, a little bit not suitable for work. Not that anything's going to be shown. Everything's still going to be covered, but you get the idea of what they're going to be showing. A lot of really cool covers. So the Good Girl art of Bruce Timm, Naughty and Nice. Really cool. I mean, just look at that cover. It's fantastic stuff. And this thing, $100. That's what I'm saying. So this is $100 for a little art book. Definitely not cheap when you have them and you're trying to buy them in the aftermarket. So you got to kind of get lucky sometimes. And the types of things that are in here, again, it's a lot of sketches and some finished art as well. And you can see, like I said, things are covered up here on the images that I'm sharing. But if you had the actual book, they would not be covered, because it's art after all. Think of it. It's an art book. And then we have a couple other editions that he did as well, some of which are like the teasers. Like he did little teasers, which were only $15, kind of like ahead of them, the releases, and they had their own little covers. And these things also sell pretty well, even for just being teaser. I mean, again, you can see the price on the front's $15, but these things can still grab $100. $100 if you're looking. So definitely not cheap. And then the most recent one, I think this came out just a year or so ago. I think this was like 2020. The Big Tease, which is also part of this Naughty and Nice collection of sketches by Bruce Timm. This one, I think, like I said, you can still buy copies out there from the publisher. I think it's Flesk, Flesk, I think is the site. But if you look online, you can still sometimes see these things sell for like $120. But there are copies out there because this is more recent. I don't know if, as far as printing goes or how that might affect the resale value, but if you were just looking to buy the art book itself, there are still copies out there for you to be able to purchase if you go and look. And again, just really cool stuff. Definitely cool stuff, cool art. Again, covered for the purposes we serve here. And if you want to check these out, go look into them. Go look into them. But that's what I've got for you this week. That was my artist retrospective on Bruce Timm. That is a self-portrait of his. I'm trying to see if I can keep that up because last week I had a Dave Stevens self-portrait as well, and see if I can keep that kind of going. I don't know if every artist I do is going to have a self-portrait that we can share, but we'll see how long I can go with that. But hopefully you enjoyed that, and hopefully you're enjoying this series. Please let me know more stuff you want to see, want to hear. I know before I got the feedback, some people wanted a little bit more of their history. So I tried to give a little bit more of the history of the artist leading into going into those top 5 books before getting to other covers I wanted to cover. But let me know what you want. Let me know what you want to hear more about, because we can get more into their history, more into their works. We can just go through their timeline if that's something that you guys are rather be into. Or if you want more than one top 5, like I could have done top 5 Marvel, I could have done top 5 independent and give you some more pricing valuations if that's something you're really interested in, outside of just the general ballpark numbers I throw out while I'm blathering on. But again, let me know what you think in the comments. This is still new. This is only the second episode after all, so it's a work in progress. I'm trying to build something here and find a good rhythm and a good video series that I can work into the schedule. So for right now, I'm going to sneak this one in on Mondays when I have openings because I feel like that's a good spot for it. So let me know what you think. If you like it, please like, subscribe, hit the alert button. Even though we hit my goal of 1,000, I still want to keep growing this thing bigger. So keep telling your friends and get more people to join in on the fun. And check out the live shows we do on Wednesdays and Sundays. And all the other recorded stuff I drop at least once a day. Thank you guys all for stopping by again. And I look forward to seeing you soon.